She was born the daughter of a preacher man, Tommy Douglas to be precise, before he became Premier of Saskatchewan or the first leader of the federal NDP. She studied at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art in London and went on to a career as an actress. After marrying Donald Sutherland in 1966, she moved to Los Angeles and became active in the American Civil Rights Movement, the opposition to the Vietnam War, and the effort to gain greater rights for women and immigrants. She raised funds for the Black Panthers, and in 1969 was arrested for conspiracy to possess unregistered explosives after being accused of buying grenades for the Black Panthers. Apparently framed by the FBI for her activism, she spent 5 days in jail and had her U.S. work permit revoked. She was eventually exonerated, but returned to Canada and made Toronto her home. Over the last decades of her life, she worked for nuclear disarmament and, not surprisingly, advocated tirelessly for the protection of publicly funded healthcare in Canada. She died on April 5th, 3 days after her 86th birthday.
Here at Toronto First, our pastoral care team keeps a list of community organizations that can provide support to people in crisis. The Gerstein Center is high on that list, providing 24/7 telephone crisis intervention and counseling to adults who experience mental health problems. It was founded in 1989 by psychologist Riva Gerstein. She was born in Toronto on March 27, 1917, and she died on January 6, 2020. In 1946, Dr. Gerstein became the first psychologist in the Ontario school system when she was hired by the East York Leaside Board of Health. She went on to work for the Canadian Mental Health Association, created Mental Health Week in Canada, hosted a CBC radio program on mental health issues, founded the Hinks Treatment Center for Adolescents, and made countless other contributions in education and mental health care. In the words of her grandson, interviewed for the Globe and Mail, Riva Gerstein believed that our society would not be judged or remembered by the size of its waterfronts or the height of its buildings, but that it would be remembered for how we treat the most vulnerable, disadvantaged people in it. Dr. Riva Gerstein was 102 years old.
Larry Kramer was a novelist and playwright and public health advocate, but he will be best remembered for his in-your-face brand of activism and for the critical difference that it made. While he often rubbed people the wrong way, it was Kramer's unrelenting concern for others' well-being that prompted him to found in 1982 the Gay Men's Health Crisis, a community-based health organization whose purpose was to end the AIDS epidemic and uplift the lives of all affected. Frustrated with the bureaucracy and homophobia that slowed the U.S. government response to AIDS, Kramer in 1987 founded ACT UP, the AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power. ACT UP was confrontational by design, and it worked. ACT UP dramatically changed public health policy and the perception of people living with AIDS. Funding for drug trials and medical support significantly increased. As caustic as he could sometimes be, Kramer's commitment saved the lives of countless people around the world. He died on May 27th at the age of 84.
I have many cousins in the United States, and I've seldom felt so close to them as I did on the night that my cousin Emily competed on Jeopardy! She didn't win. The correct answer was, "What are espadrilles?" But she got to meet Alex Trebek, which was something well worth celebrating. Alex Trebek was born in Sudbury in July of 1940. He earned a degree in philosophy from the University of Ottawa, and he started his broadcasting career at the CBC before moving to the US and eventually becoming an American citizen. When he died at age 80, he had hosted Jeopardy for 37 seasons, and the final episode aired just this past Friday night. Jeopardy was a program that celebrated the joy of general knowledge, as well as the ongoing importance of always asking questions. Alex Trebek's warmth and kindness will be remembered, as well as the grace that he showed in living with pancreatic cancer for 2 years until his death on November the 8th.
If you've seen the movie Hidden Figures, you know who Katherine Johnson was. Born in 1918 in West Virginia, she had from an early age a certain knack with numbers. At 19, she graduated from college with highest honors with a degree in mathematics and French. She was then handpicked to be one of the first 3 black students to integrate the Graduate School of West Virginia University. She left the program after a term to have children and to become a school teacher. In 1952, though, she took a job in the all-black computing department at the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics. She spent the next 4 years analyzing flight data, and by the time that organization transformed into NASA, she had gained a reputation for the solid reliability of her calculations. When there was a question about the 1962 flight trajectory of the Friendship 7 command module, the astronaut John Glenn made clear that he trusted her math over what the computers of the time could do. Glenn said, "If she makes those calculations and pronounces them good, then I am ready to go." This great pioneer of human spaceflight died on February 24th at the age of 101.
American singer-songwriter Bill Withers is known for his smooth baritone and pop soul hits Ain't No Sunshine, Lean on Me, Lovely Day, and Just the Two of Us. Withers was the youngest of 6 children born into a coal mining family in Slab Fork, West Virginia. After serving in the U.S. Navy, he moved to Los Angeles, launching his famed career, but never forgetting his roots. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2015, saying, "I'm not a virtuoso, but I was able to write songs that people could identify with. I don't think I've done bad for a guy from Slab Fork." Withers died on March 30th at the age of 81.
2020 will be remembered not only for the coronavirus pandemic and the dramatic political events south of the border, but for the Black Lives Matter movement and calls for police reform across North America. We could fill this service with the names of people who died because of systemic racism last year. Many, such as George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, are familiar names by now, but sadly, others less so. Dondre Campbell, a 26-year-old black man, was shot and killed in Brampton, Ontario on April 7th, 2020, by Peel Regional Police. Campbell was living with mental health issues, and he had called police for help on the day that he died. Family members say that after entering Campbell's home, 2 police officers used their tasers on him before shooting him with a handgun while he was on the ground. Also 26 years old when she died was Chantel Moore, an Indigenous woman from the Tlaoquiat First Nation on the West Coast. She had recently moved to New Brunswick to be with her mother and her 6-year-old daughter. Chantel Moore was shot and killed by police during a wellness check on June the 4th. Our hearts are heavy as we hear of these deaths and as we consider how many lives are lost as a result of systemic racism in Canada and elsewhere. May our Unitarian principles guide us toward the work we must do to bring about racial justice and reconciliation.
When transgender women in Queens needed a safe place to be tested for HIV, Lorena Borjas turned her home into a clinic. When others were arrested and charged with prostitution, she bailed them out. When some faced deportation after an arrest, she created a nonprofit group to arrange for legal representation. Lorena Borjas, who was described as an indefatigable activist who drew on her experience as an immigrant transgender woman to help others, died of COVID-19 complications on March 30th at the age of 59. She was born in Mexico City and moved to New York City when she was 20. She was convicted soon after of several prostitution charges, which were later vacated by a judge who noted that she had been forced into human trafficking. She was fully pardoned in 2017. We honor her today for the way she took from her own hardships a commitment to help others in similar circumstances.
For the past 40 years, no one who read a Canadian newspaper could not know the name Christy Blatchford. Known for her toughness and tenacity as a reporter, she cared deeply for the victims of injustice, moving her readers to care deeply too. Driven by what others describe as a very strong moral compass, she often formed personal connections with the people she championed in her stories, going well beyond the usual boundaries of journalism. In 2006, Christy Blatchford covered the war in Afghanistan while embedded with Canadian soldiers, spending weeks hunting the Taliban in the mountains of Kandahar, an experience she would later name as a highlight of her career. She wrote for the Toronto Sun, the Globe and Mail, the Toronto Star, and the National Post, earning deep respect from readers and fellow journalists alike. Christy Blatchford died of cancer on February 12th, 2020.
As Unitarian Universalist, we honor the interdependent web of life of which we are a part. While we lift up today the lives of many people who died in this past year, it seems fitting to name a much-beloved gorilla who passed away in 2020 as well, particularly since some of you may have known her. Josephine arrived at the Toronto Zoo on May 9, 1974, 3 months before it opened to the public. She had made the journey as a 3-year-old from Gabon, West Africa. One of the oldest living gorillas in a North American zoo, Josephine was the mother of 5 offspring and the grandmother of another 5 offspring. Those who worked with her considered her sassy, spunky, and something of a foodie. She would savor her treats, taking several bites of a single almond and taking 10 minutes to enjoy every bit of a fig. As Western lowland gorillas are at risk of extinction, Josephine was an ambassador for her species and contributed to behavioral research at several major universities across Ontario. Josephine died at the age of 49 on December 6th. She is mourned by the gorilla troop at the zoo, as well as by her keepers and the general public that came to know her over the past 5 decades.
Canadian singer-songwriter Laura Smith was born on March 18, 1952, in London, Ontario. She died of cancer in Mahone Bay, Nova Scotia, on March 7th last year, just shy of her 68th birthday. Known for her song Shade of Her Love, as well as a beautiful rendition of the traditional My Bonnie Lies Over the Ocean, she released 4 studio albums, and a new retrospective has just been released by Borealis Records. We often talk about the interdependent web of existence, and in the world of artistic expression, we can see it in how one artist influences another. Laura Smith influenced me with this song in particular, as I've taken up a new pastime during the pandemic. Here's Laura Smith's song, 4-letter word for lonesome. I've been a 4-letter word for lonesome, since you've been a 4-letter word for away. You're in that 9-letter land they call down under, going to sleep tomorrow when I'm waking up today. I sit in the same chair every night, sharpening pencils by the firelight, trying to figure out which letter goes into which space. I'm doing crossword puzzles. They're all in the shape of your face. I've been a four-letter word for lonesome, since you've been a four-letter word for away. I've got my five-letter book out. I'm looking at maps of the world, but I don't know where you're standing today. I've been a five-letter word for all by myself. Have you been having any three-letter word for a good time? Don't be a seven-letter word and go cheating on me, darling. You'd be a five-letter word for out of your mind. I've been a four-letter word for lonesome, since you've been a four-letter word for away. I've got my five-letter book out. I'm looking at maps of the world, but I don't know where you're standing, or where are you standing? I wish you were standing right beside me today. Laura Smith.
So you've either seen the video or you haven't. If you have, you'll know exactly who I'm talking about. And if you haven't, you won't, at least not yet. So fear not, I will include a link to the video in the chat at the end of the service, as well as in the spot on our website where today's sermon would normally be posted. The amateur video in question involves a man named Paul Bear Vasquez taking in the sight of a double rainbow in January 2010. He just keeps excitedly exclaiming for several minutes, "Whoa!" And then he weeps at the beauty of it all. The video went viral a decade ago, and it has been seen by millions around the world. Some people worried that he was not well. Some people wondered if he was really, really high. Whatever the case, the double rainbow which you can see on the camera was indeed stunning, stretching across from one side of a valley to the other. May we all be able to live with such awe for the beauty of the earth. Paul Honey Bear Vasquez died at 57 in September.
The scene is a restaurant occupied by a man and wife, a waitress, and a table of Vikings. When asked what is on the menu, the waitress, played by Terry Jones, says, "Well, there's egg and bacon, egg, sausage and bacon, egg and spam, egg, bacon and spam, spam, sausage, spam, bacon, spam, tomato and spam." And then the Vikings start chanting spam, 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 and it does go on. Terry Jones was beloved for that sketch, as well as so many others in the TV series Monty Python's Flying Circus. Of interest to heretics among us, he also wrote and directed The Life of Brian, in which a young Jewish boy named Brian Cohen is mistaken for the Messiah. The film was banned in Britain, Ireland, and Norway. In the film's defense, Jones said it wasn't about Jesus Christ, but about the people who, for the next 2,000 years, would torture and kill each other because they couldn't agree on what he was saying about peace and love. Like so many other gifted comedians, Terry Jones guided us toward the meaning of life through laughter. He died on January 21st, 2020, at age 77.
Born in 1933 in New Jersey, Salome Bay became a Canadian after moving to Toronto in 1964. Bay met her husband-to-be, Howard Berkeley Matthews, when touring Toronto in 1961 at the First Floor Club, a Yorkville hotspot that stood near where the Toronto Reference Library stands today. Once settled here, she played the jazz club circuit across the country and became known as Canada's First Lady of the Blues. Beyond playing clubs, she crafted reviews and wrote stage productions. She received multiple honors and devoted herself in later years to nurturing the talents of many young Black Canadian artists. The great Canadian singer Jackie Richardson said of Bey, "She is Mother Earth. She has such depth in her voice, such depth within her soul. She is so rooted." Salome Bey died on August 8th at the age of 86.
Johnny Nash was an American singer-songwriter and pop reggae artist, best known for his hit, I Can See Clearly Now. A versatile singer, he was also well known for numerous covers of beloved songs and voiced the theme song to the 1960s animated series, The Mighty Hercules. Nash was one of the first non-Jamaican artists to record reggae music in Kingston, Jamaica after connecting with legends Bob Marley, Bunny Wailer, and Peter Tosh. Nash died peacefully of natural causes at his home in Houston on October 6th. He was 80 years old.
Having heard about all these lives lived in 2020, may we see the meaning and purpose of our lives more clearly. May we continue on our paths with joy and courage, knowing that we are linked with so many others who have gone before.